Welcome to Devine Intervention, shedding light on Illinois property tax.
Welcome back to Devine Intervention, shedding light on Illinois property tax with Nora Devine. Nora has been a property tax attorney in private practice since 2005. She has developed a statewide practice in all jurisdictions in Illinois, and she represents all property classes. My name is Kevin Rosenquist, and today's episode takes us inside the Board of Review, the place where thousands of Illinois property tax appeals are decided every year. We'll talk about who serves on the board, how cases are evaluated, and what really happens once your appeal leaves the assessor's office. Nora, welcome back.
Thank you.
So for property owners who have never filed an appeal beyond the assessor, what is the Board of Review and how does it fit into the property tax system?
Well, we start as we always do with answering the question, it depends. It depends on if you're in Cook County or if you're outside of Cook County. We'll start with Cook County. There's 1.8 million PINs and about 1/3 of them go to the Cook County Board of Review every year.
Wow.
So the appeal activity is really high in Cook County. And so most people probably have had their property appealed to the Cook County Board of Review at some point or another. And I would advise that they do so because the people who don't appeal for 2 decades will end up being astronomically high on the spreadsheet compared to all the other similarly classified homes in the neighborhood. So unfortunately, the system in Cook County is that if you don't appeal for long enough, you will be the very highest assessed in your neighborhood, period, the end.
I tell you, it's funny, like you've given me that 1/3 number, that figure before, and it's crazy to me that 1/3 of those PINs end up in the appeal process.
Yep. And I think part of that is that if you appeal to the Cook County assessor, you can almost never close the file at the Cook County assessor because either no relief is granted or not enough relief is granted. So there is an appeal process there, but extremely small percentages of cases are resolved at that level of appeal. So therefore, it does get moved over to the Board of Review for them to decide. And so the board makes it extremely easy to appeal on your own, and people can do that, and they definitely do that. And the Board of Review is very engaging with the public. They're out there doing outreach, and they're explaining to people how the process works and how they can file an appeal themselves. And they say, hey, it's super easy. Just enter these 5 data points, and then we'll do the research for you. And then, we'll issue a result. And sometimes the result is they lower the assessment. And sometimes the result is they say that the assessment is fair. So they are doing things for attorneys who file on behalf of people, and they are reviewing properties also for people who file on their own without a representative.
Is there ever any situation where they actually bump it up? Is there a risk of that or no?
Not in Cook County.
Okay.
We don't see that. They do have the power to increase an assessment. I have not seen it in Cook County. I'm trying to think if I've seen it outside of Cook County. Not on any of my cases at the Board of Review, but I have heard that there were some increases that happened in Kane County once, and this was a group appeal for an entire subdivision.
Oh, wow.
And the result was, no change on these, decrease on these, increase on those. So the, group appeals are not something I've been a huge fan of, and I don't do them. So and that's kind of one reason. So it can happen. They do have the power to do it. It's generally not seen.
So who are the people that make up the board? Are they elected officials, assessors? Who are these people?
And of course, it depends. In Cook County, they are elected. So there are 3 different districts in Cook County. There is one that's kind of north side and one that's kind of south side. And then there was one district that was really cut all the way around the perimeter, and it was really kind of cut to be a Republican seat. Of course, they remapped it and they kind of mapped the Republican commissioner out of his position. So they drew the map in such a way that a Republican could not win it. So now we have 3 elected Democratic commissioners on the Cook County Board of Review, and they are elected it's a convoluted election cycle too. It's like a 4-year and then a 4-year and then a 2-year, or it's like a 2-year and a 4-year and a 4-year, or it's a 4-year, 2-year, 4-year. And so they do that to stagger the elections so that you're not having, complete turnover of all 3 commissioners at any given time.
Okay.
But it is kind of confusing, and I lose track of what's what and who's coming and who's going myself. But in Cook County, they're elected. Outside of Cook County, they're almost always appointed. The exception being if there is a commission county where there is no township government, there may be, say, 5 county commissioners that are elected. And of those county commissioners, maybe 3 of them will serve on the board of review. And then maybe they'd have alternates appointed and things like that. So they can be elected and appointed in a certain county. They can be totally elected like Cook County, or they can be totally appointed like most of the counties.
Okay. Can you walk us through what happens once an appeal is filed? How is evidence reviewed? How long does this take?
Again, it depends. So let's say Will County, they mail everything out at once. Everything that's being reassessed, it's all the townships are mailed at once. And then the filing deadline is 30 days later. So the filing deadline for the entire county is 30 days later. And then the appeals happen over the course of 2 or 3 months. And then they send out results like 1 or 2 months after that. So we're expecting to have results out of Will County, in December or January, I would think. If not, okay, we can wait, but it's generally they're done pretty quick because they move all the townships together at the same time. Other counties, however, they publish this township, the deadline's in 30 days. And next week they publish this other township, the deadline's 30 days from then. And then so there's this kind of more like a rolling cycle. And, from the earliest township publication to the latest township publication, there may be 60 or 90 days difference between when those townships are published. And generally, though, no matter where you are, no matter what the publication cycle or schedule is, they are usually wrapping up their work by the middle of April in every county, and that's even in Cook County.
Okay. And what is the evidence that they're looking at?
It depends. If you can put in market evidence saying, okay, this property could not sell for what the assessor thinks it's worth, or you're putting in uniformity evidence where you're saying, okay, everyone else in the neighborhood is assessed lower than this property. Market evidence is stronger. Uniformity cases are hard to win. There are many boards of review in the state where if the assessing official can show that there are any properties at all that are assessed higher than the subject, they will say there's no change on a uniformity case. They'll say that the property is bracketed by, properties that are assessed higher and properties that are assessed lower. So the stronger case is probably market evidence. So was there a recent sale? Was there a recent effort to sell? Was there a recent appraisal? Is even like, do you have a competitive market analysis from a broker? Maybe you considered listing your house for sale. Maybe you got some sales data from some local brokers and they told you you should list it at this much. Even something like that can help in terms of showing what the market value of the property is.
Does the board give, different weight to different pieces of evidence, whether it's an independent appraisal or sales data or assessor records?
There's not a lot of boards of review that actually publish their standards in terms of what standard of proof are we going for here. The Property Tax Appeal Board, which is the next level above the board of review, they have standards. So it's clear and convincing evidence if you're making a lack of uniformity argument, and it's preponderance of the evidence if you're putting in market value. So the boards of review don't necessarily publish in their rules like what the standards of proof are, but in my experience, they do take an adjudicated view of what the next level of appeal will do. So when they are doing their work, they are in the back of their mind thinking, now what will PTAB do with this? So even though these standards of review are not codified in the board of review rules most of the time, they're there. They're definitely present in the way that they analyze and the way that they decide cases.
Do you see significant differences in how boards operate from county to county?
One of the biggest differences is whether or not they allow virtual hearings. I just drove to 3.5 hours for a 15-minute hearing, and it was 3.5 hours one way. So I got in my car at 5 a.m. for a 8:45 or 9 a.m. hearing. I followed this huge harvest moon, all the way west toward Iowa. And then, I took a left turn before I got to Iowa, and I went to this hearing for 15 minutes. And this absolutely should have been a phone hearing.
Yeah, I would say so.
If I wasn't willing to get in my car and drive out there, I don't really know who would have, because this wasn't a really huge case. And there are a lot of attorneys who would have, would say like, I'm not taking that because I'm not going to spend literally an entire day driving in my car for a 15-minute hearing. So I think that we have seen virtual hearings expand. Lake County was an early adopter. They started with phone hearings way back, way before the pandemic. When prior to the pandemic, Kane County allowed you to call in if there was bad weather because they understood, the danger there.
Yeah.
And then during the pandemic, they went all Zoom. And then there's modest differences between how they do their phone hearings. If it's on Zoom, is it recorded? If they're recording it, it creates a public record. You can FOIA the public record later if you need it. If they're not recording it, then they're not creating a record. They're not creating something that can be FOIA'd. So those are smaller differences, but they are differences. And then some people make you drive out there. And they even make you drive out there even if all you're doing is exhausting administrative remedies and you don't have new evidence beyond what you argued last year. Like, you would think they would let you decide this on the evidence and that you would not have to go to the actual physical hearing. But there are still some boards of review that make you drive out there. And it's obvious that they are using this as a tactic to try to reduce the number of appeals that get filed every year.
And what exactly happens during these hearings? And does every appeal get a hearing?
In my experience, yes. If you ask for a hearing, you pretty much will have a hearing. There are some boards of review where they'll have one hearing officer or one analyst listening to your argument and reviewing the documents that you submitted. And in many counties, there's at least two. There's at least two, sometimes three board of review members that are, present and listening and reviewing the evidence that was submitted. So it can be anywhere from 1 to 3. And sometimes these folks are elected, sometimes they're appointed, sometimes they're alternate members. I usually ask at the beginning of a hearing who's who and what's what, just because I like to know who's in the room and where their power is derived. And I think it's helpful in framing my arguments.
You mentioned that the criteria that the boards look at generally isn't something that's common knowledge or isn't out there, but how transparent is the actual decision-making process? Is the board clear as far as why an appeal was granted or denied?
Yeah, I mean, I would say Cook County is not known for, its good government, but this is one particular spot where they really do shine. And it's been this way a long time that you could always actually put your hands on the notes that the analyst wrote, and you could see like who approved this change or who denied this request. There is more than one signature, whose staff they're on, who the analyst is, and then they will put in the file folder exactly how the number was calculated, what problems they had with your appraisal, what they liked about your appraisal, like how they did their income approach on your commercial properties. And it's been like this for a long time in Cook County. When I started doing this, it was paper file jackets. And I was one of the first people to take in a portable scanner. And I would scan, the notes, because it would be really helpful, because you'd have people that were really on the edge of their seat. Your clients would really want to know what was being done with the result. And, you'd be reviewing 20, 30 file jackets and you wouldn't be able to remember it all. You didn't really have a cell phone in your pocket with a beautiful camera yet. So I was like bringing in this flatbed scanner and, scanning the analyst notes so that I could explain exactly how the case was decided. And then that was helpful. So Cook County, that's a bright spot for Cook County government right there, is that they are very transparent about how they made the decision, who signed off on it. Other counties, they say, oh, we really wish that people wouldn't ask for so many hearings. But if they don't give you that transparency of how the denial happened or how the reduction happened or how the number was derived, then you feel like you need to take the hearing, because then at least you need to get some kind of feedback from the decider of fact so that you can share it with the client. So like Lake County comes to mind. I won't know what they were thinking if I don't ask for a hearing and show up to the hearing. You know what I mean? There's no record that I can get later. And I guess now you can FOIA the actual recording of because even when you waive the hearing, they still, I believe, record the Zoom meeting when they deliberate and talk about the case. So I think that now these days, I think you can get some info on their decision-making process in that county. But in many counties, you don't. I mean, you're absolutely blind to what they were thinking or why they did what they did.
Well, we've come a long way since portable scanners, haven't we?
Yeah, now you just now you don't have to go in person at all because
Yeah.
the board of review is totally paperless. So you go into the portal and all the analyst notes are right there.
Yeah,
So,
that's funny.
so now I'm much more comfortable waiving those hearings because I know that, the decision will be well thought out and it will be laid out and it will be something that I can take back and explain to the property owner.
So once a decision has made, does the property owner have any recourse after that if they still disagree with the assessment?
In Cook County, they have something called a re-review process, which is really just like a quick 2-day period where if there was a major swing and a miss, like the board just did the wrong math, or they just didn't see, the stuff didn't make it in the file, they didn't see it, or if there's just a major swing and a miss type of stuff, you can put some new evidence in on re-review, or you can correct their math on re-review if something was wrong with their analysis. They don't want to be seeing a case in chief on re-review, obviously, and they definitely don't want people using that as another way to make an evaluation argument. But it's more, did we really get something wrong? Was there an error in how we worked this out? And then that's when they want to hear about it. And then after that, if you are unhappy with the decision of any board of review in any of the 102 counties, you can either file a specific objection complaint in circuit court, or you can file with the Illinois Property Tax Appeal Board.
Do you have any advice or tips for any property owners or attorneys that might be preparing a case for board of review?
In Cook County, they do have the ability for a residential property owner to go to a hearing. And I think that can be good if there's something unique about your property that you really need to explain. Hiring an attorney can be a really smart idea because they know what is legally relevant and they know not to advance arguments that aren't going to work. They know not to make statements that are going to work against you. And sometimes you just don't know what you don't know. So you can go it alone, but hiring an attorney can be a good idea as well.
Yeah, this tax world is not an area I would go alone personally. So I'm glad people like you do what you do, Nora. All right, well, that's it for today's episode of Devine Intervention, shedding light on Illinois property tax. If you're preparing for a board of review appeal or just want to understand how your last case was decided, Nora and her team at the Devine Law Group can help you navigate the process. Check out thedevinelawgroup.com to learn more, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel and leave us a review. Really appreciate the time, Nora. Always enjoy chatting with you. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.